I have never made a video like this before. I don't talk about these things on my channel, on social media, but I have just felt compelled just to kind of share some of my thoughts as a teacher. It's been over 2 weeks since the Uvalde, Texas elementary school shooting, and it's been something that has, like all the other school shootings, weighed really heavily on me. Not just the fact that I'm a teacher, that I live in Texas, I've lived in Texas my whole life. Just as a human being, the fact that this is something that keeps happening and nothing is done about it. I know that me making a video is probably not going to change anything, but just one thing that I really feel compelled to kind of just share my opinion on is this notion that I keep seeing from people who have never been teachers, never been in the education system, politicians, just people who have this idea that a solution would be to arm teachers, for teachers to have guns in the classroom in the event of a situation like what we just saw a couple of weeks ago. And let me just quickly give background. I just finished my second year as a 9th grade English teacher in Texas. Before that, I was a substitute teacher for about a year for grade levels 5 through 12. So if you are not a teacher, if you've never been a teacher, I truly cannot explain to you how much goes into teaching. It's one of those things that unless you've done it, you really don't understand. And before I was a teacher, I was so naive. I had a cousin, or have a cousin, I have friends who were teachers before I got into it. And the concept of being a teacher seems so simple to me. So you just teach the kids and you get summers off, you get all these breaks off, you're off by 3 or 4 p.m. It just seems so simple to me until I actually got into the classroom and I realized how much goes into it. You're not just their teacher, you're their counselor, their nurse, their safe space. You're kind of like a parental figure. You're so many things in one. And teaching, like actual teaching, standing up and teaching a lesson or a concept, is such a small part of what goes into being a teacher, of what goes into keeping a school orderly, functioning, for making kids feel safe, like they belong, like they're in an environment to learn. And I could talk about this for hours, but I truly cannot explain like how much goes into teaching. Some things that maybe you may or may not know is that teachers are underpaid, so we largely buy mostly everything in our classrooms, from pencils to markers to hand sanitizer, Kleenex, decorations to make our students feel safe and feel comfortable, and just so many other things. Teachers spend hundreds, if not over $1,000 every single school year just buying things for our classrooms. And not that it matters, but most of that is not tax deductible, so we are spending our own money to buy things for our classroom. Lots of schools are so under-resourced and underfunded. The desks are in bad shape. The printers are not working. There's just so many things that could be done to improve schools. So keeping that in mind, the idea that giving teachers who are already overworked, underpaid, under extreme stress, and just juggling all these things, guns, with the expectation that not only are we supposed to do all these other things and keep up with all these other responsibilities and duties, but now we are also supposed to be handling guns and fully trained and able to be G.I. Joe in case of a school shooter situation, is just ridiculous to me. And anybody who thinks that this is a solution has clearly never been a teacher, never been anything inside of a classroom. And so it's just crazy to me that instead of talking about why is it so easy to access these assault rifles in Texas and the United States? Why are there no background checks? Just why are there so many other things that some people jump to the solution of if teachers were armed, this would not be a problem? And that idea just completely baffles me. And thinking about how stressed out I already am on a daily basis as a teacher, and then throwing in that I am responsible for keeping this firearm and in the event of an emergency, pulling it out and using it is just the craziest concept that I just cannot wrap my brain around. And there's just so many things wrong with this concept. The main thing being budgeting. So you're telling me that I have to pay for my own Kleenex, my own tissue, and hand sanitizer, but somehow we will find the money to arm and train every single teacher. And things that I can immediately see going wrong, teachers would not be prepared because not everybody is comfortable handling and shooting a gun. I've shot guns before. I have been to the range, I've shot handguns, other guns, but throwing that into a classroom and just having to add that responsibility on top of everything else that we are already responsible for, is just crazy to me. And also the notion of every single student knowing that all of their teachers somewhere in their classroom have a gun. There's just so many things that could go wrong with that. And I just want to say to people who think this is a solution to just kind of think about that idea. I know there's lots of schools in rural Texas who allow some of their teachers to be armed, and they have signs outside their school saying like warning or beware, teachers in here are armed and will use it if necessary. It's just ridiculous that we think that is a solution. I did not sign up to be a police officer. I did not sign up to be G.I. Jane. I signed up to be a teacher. And so the idea that giving us guns is going to somehow help in the event of a school shooting is just ridiculous to me. And it's just something that I feel kind of compelled to talk about. Thinking about what's been said and what's been going on, not just these past couple of weeks, but since Stoneman Douglas, since Sandy Hook, since Columbine, since all of these school shootings have been going on. And as a teacher, I can't explain the feeling of having teaching and all these other things on your mind. In the back of your head, there's always the idea of what if there's a school shooter. From the first day I stepped into the classroom as a sub, I immediately thought about what would I do if there was a shooter? Where would I go? How would I protect my students? Whenever there's a random lockdown drill that we're not told about, I think about that. Whenever there's a loud noise in the hallway, I think about that. And something that's really honestly just the saddest part is that I see in most of my students who are in high school that they are kind of desensitized to school shootings because this has unfortunately been a norm since they first began school. They've seen so many school shootings constantly happening. I remember just all of these things that have been happening, and they are unfortunately normalized and these students are used to it. School is supposed to be a place where they feel safe. If every single teacher has to have a loaded gun in their classroom, that's not a safe place. That sounds like a prison. It just does not sound like a safe place for kids. And this is just so crazy that people think that giving teachers would be a proper solution. So as someone who is a teacher in the classroom, this is just my 2 cents on why that is not the solution. I personally, as a teacher, would not feel safe knowing every single teacher had a concealed weapon. I know that if I were a student, I also would not feel safe. We're all human. Teachers can get angry and upset. Students can get angry and upset. And the idea of adding guns into the classroom to somehow keep shooters out is just the craziest concept to me. So to anyone who thinks that would be a solution, just think about it for a second. My opinion is that we need focus on mental health. We need background checks. You should have to, it shouldn't be so easy to walk in at 18 and legally buy these types of guns. There's no need for an 18-year-old or anybody to get these types of guns. There should be background checks. There should be character references. That is just, in my opinion, what would be a better solution. I also see lots of people saying things like schools need to have more security. There should only be one point of entry. There should be metal detectors and all these things. And again, I want to remind you guys that this is not a prison. A school should not feel like you're going into a prison. Could you imagine being a student walking in and going through a metal detector, getting patted down, your teachers have guns, there's only one point of exit and entry? Like, guys, this is school, it's not prison. It should not feel like we're going into war whenever we are going into work as teachers, as counselors, as students going in. So just my thoughts on this. And honestly, if I personally would not work for a school or school district that had the policy of teachers being able to conceal carry, because that would just make me feel uncomfortable and personally not safe at work. So that is my 2 cents on that. This is something that just, it's so obvious what some of the solutions could be. Things are not being done, and the fact that we have to keep constantly seeing this happen is just a real tragedy. And I feel really bad for kids who are growing up in this generation with this being the American school system.